A year after a woman is murdered, her blind clairvoyant twin sister seeks to uncover the truth about what really happened on the night of her sister's death. This is Oddity, and its premise is actually fairly unique, so join us to see if it's one of 2024's hidden gems. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Hello.
This is a horror movie podcast. We get together, we talk about a horror movie. It's that simple, and on today's show, we're still chipping away at 2024 horror movies that we feel we need to get to. Today was... like, some of them we've went into with, like, the expectation of good because they've had buzz. Some have went into the expectation of imaginary because it's imaginary, and this one was kind of somewhere in the middle where I actually wasn't really sure what to feel going into it. I knew I had a little bit of buzz, but I kind of went in very cold. I had no idea what the premise was or anything like that. So today we're talking about Oddity, which is also the title of Tim's sex tape.
Shh, don't tell anyone.
We'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you warning before we get the spoilers, and if you are enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch, and of course you can get bonus content and help support the show over at Patreon, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So yes, Oddity. Oddity is... I'm actually trying to debate how much of this is like safe for spoiler free. Now I'm thinking about it. I think, I mean, most, even the one line of like premise on most websites says after the death of a character, the sister sort of investigates, or I mean, investigates isn't even the right word. She's a blind woman who's a psychic, and after her sister's murder, tries to use her psychic abilities and odd artifacts to maybe deal with those responsible or something to that effect. I'll just leave it there. I don't even know what else I should say, but this is an Irish horror film from last year, and yeah, so we'll get into it. Tim,
Yeah.
what did you think of Oddity?
So I'd actually seen this before, so this is my second time watching it.
Okay, imagine it was your first time. What was your reaction the first time you watched it?
Well, I'm just saying that because that's why I didn't join in when you're talking about what you were anticipating and going into it and stuff. Yeah, I gotta say, I like it.
I knew you were going to swear. I knew that was you're. I can tell when you're playing, when you're not being real.
I actually like this quite a bit. So I believe it's the same director from another movie that I think we both like, right? Is it Bound or something like that? Do you remember that one I'm talking about?
Okay, luckily.
Well, no, not that Bound.
No, I know.
Not the.
Yeah, it's not the Wachowski movies, but no, it's not called Bound. I don't know where you're getting Bound from. You're pulling that out your ass somewhere. But as it happens, I just a minute ago pulled up the director and looked at what they'd done, and I didn't know that they'd done this other film before I watched it, so this was a surprise to me. But Damian McCarthy, the director, had previously made a film called Caveat.
Okay, yeah, way off on the title.
Yeah, I'm like, where was Bound coming from?
Well, I mean, the movie, it's kind of like a guy is bound because he's like on that like leash or whatever kind of thing I mean, you want to call it.
Yes. The plot does involve some light bondage. That is correct.
Which I don't think we did that one on the show, right?
No, that was when you were off on your first maternity leave. Or paternity leave, sorry. Freudian slip.
But yeah, I think that was like a random movie that we both saw and liked. And yeah, I just, I mean, it seems like maybe he hasn't done much else, but I mean, just given these two movies, I'm actually, quite fond of, him, and will definitely be interested to see what he does next. I think this movie is just, I think it has a lot of atmosphere. There's a lot of weirdness to it I like. I was a little worried going in the second viewing if, knowing where things are going to go, if it would maybe be a bit more dull, but I was actually, still found it quite riveting. What I think he does that is so engaging is he's just so good at like setting up all these like little pieces of things that come into play later, especially like I guess like in terms of like the geography of the house. Like I feel like he's so good at setting up like, this specific area, and then he can do like make it so creepy just by being like, oh yeah, there's this one corner that's really dark, but it's like, oh, but you have to go there, and then you're just focusing on it and you're just waiting for something to happen. I think this has such a killer opening. Like, there's like a few minutes in the beginning where it's just, characters kind of setting up and stuff. But once we get to that, like the opening.
I know what you mean by opening. Like, it's not actually the first scene, but like there's a big scene like a minute or two in that you're referring to.
And he just like, it just creates such good tension, and it's so memorable and so good. And even that, like, it's kind of not even exactly what you think. And then I like how many different weird little things are like going on in this. Again, it's kind of hard to get into everything without spoilers, but I think this is a great little movie. And I mean, I was not demeaning when I said like little, but it wasn't like a big blockbuster thing. I think it might have had like maybe a small theatrical release, but like I don't know. It wasn't like in the bigger public consciousness like some of the big breakout horror stuff last year. But I do feel like a lot of horror people were talking about it. It might have been one of those ones that was getting touted around it being like, oh, this movie's so scary, which, it's always like, I feel like kind of a tough thing to say, especially to like horror fans where it's like, we're so jaded. We don't really, get scared usually. But I do think there is a creepiness and an eeriness to this movie, which I quite appreciate. So, I mean, I thought this one was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, my least favorite question to be asked when someone finds out that I like horror movies is they say, oh, what was the last scary movie you watched? Or what was the most scary movie you've watched? And I'm like, none of them are scary. None of them. I do not gauge my enjoyment of a horror movie on how scary it is, because none of them are. And it does not compute with their brains. They're tiny little casual brains. Anyway.
I kind of feel like, I don't know. I kind of feel like there's a difference between, okay, is something scary and does it scare me? Because it's like, yeah, nothing really scares me anymore. Like, there's stuff I can point to that I can say, like, oh, I can see how this would be creepy, or, that might fill you with dread or something. But yeah, it's not like, that, oh, the last movie that made me, like, have to keep the lights on at night, or, something like that. Like, that just doesn't really happen anymore.
I mean, it never happened for me. I don't know. This is alien to me to even engage in that conversation. Anyway, I like the movie a fair bit. I think when it started, and I wasn't really sure where it was going, there was like a minute where I thought, oh, is this just going to be another generic supernatural movie? Because, oh, there might be a ghost in the house or something. But it very quickly did something else and started doing things that felt kind of almost weird jumps, but then everything kind of took shape and you realize what the movie's doing and what it's about. And I think it is all down to execution. I don't think like on paper the premise of this would have excited me that much, but I think it's the way that the scenes are set up. It's the way that the tension's handled, as something's like building to like a reveal or a jump or something like that, where it knows how to kind of like conceal certain information till the right time, or to, like you said, the geography of the house is a big thing, and that was a big thing in Caveat as well. That was all set in like one little cabin, and like the geography of that room that he was in that movie, and like the little area next to it was used really effectively throughout the entire thing. Especially in that one, because he's, like you said, he's on a leash and he can only go so far at any given point. So every single area he can go to, we kind of learn very well, and we always understand how far away he is from something else, and so on and so on. Obviously, this doesn't have quite as strict a thing as that, but it does use the geography of a fairly weird house, and it's like an old countryside building that's been converted into a house, and it's got like a sort of main area, and there's like an upper walkway. So it does have like a unique look to it. Also, the characters who live here are too posh and pompous to have a TV, apparently. They're too highfalutin for that. That rots your brains, Timothy. You have to read books and go to the opera or something. I don't know. But I think it just does. It has some very effective visuals at points. It kind of swerves you on kind of where it's going a few times, and I think every time it did that, it got more interesting. I think sometimes a problem with a movie that really wants to swerve you is that it can give you a good premise and then it'll swerve you out of it, and you go, but no, the original thing you said was more interesting than what you're trying to make me think or believe now. I'm now less excited. This didn't do that. This kind of kept making it more interesting every time it kind of opened something up or did something strange or whatever. But I really have to emphasize it is all down to the execution. I think McCarthy is a good director and at least it works for my taste in terms of how he builds suspense and horror scenes. So even when it is something that's a bit more of a generic moment per se, it tends to I tend to like it more in this or in Caveat more than I do in a lot of crappy horror movies. And I think it is just purely down to how he shoots them, how he likes them, how he paces them, how he edits them. All those elements just all kind of build up into something that I find a bit more pleasing.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. And like, there's a couple, like, if maybe I was gonna ding it a little bit, like there's a couple of scenes. Again, it's hard to say what happens in them or whatever, but let's say maybe when there's some like supernatural stuff that's going on or whatever, it like some of the look of it might feel like a bit more generic, but because of the way he's executing it and like the way he's building up the tension, yeah, it's something that didn't really bother me or that I would notice as much with like other directors. And it's I think it's like it's got like a good pace to it too, where it's maybe like it's not a very bombastic movie, but I did really feel like on the edge of my seat, like at points, that like it doesn't really feel like there's like much fat on the movie at all. Like and it's not like
once you hit like the end of Act 1 where it's really set everything up, I feel like it never really slows down from that point on. Because I think Act 1 feels a little bit different because it kind of jumps around a little bit and you're kind of disorientated as to like, wait, where are we now? What are we doing now? Mm-hmm. Once it kind of settles into place, it feels like everything's very tight. If I have a critique, and I don't even know if it is a critique, but like there is something about it that is a little bit predictable, like a plot element that is very easy to call early on. But I don't actually think the movie even is trying to pretend that it's like a big thing or a big reveal, because I think it's kind of more of this like, of course this was the inevitable conclusion to where we were going with this. I won't spoil it because it is a spoiler, but I think that it's like I think some people would watch it and say, oh, I saw that coming, and I'm like, yeah, everyone sees that coming. No, you're not smart for seeing that coming.
Yeah, like I was trying to remember the first time I watched it when I realized that, oh, okay, this is where we're going with it. And yeah, like I do feel like I called it like maybe somewhat early on, but but again, it didn't really feel in a way where it's like the movie is hinging on this twist or something, and then it's like, like once it's not like, all right, let's just wait till everyone gets there. It's like there's still so much going on, and there's so much fun leading up to it that it doesn't matter.
Yeah. There is one thing that I was ready to critique in that big opening we referred to, but it actually gets addressed in the movie later on, so it doesn't. It actually ended up getting fixed by the time the movie was over, so it doesn't matter. But it was something that in the scene I was sort of thinking, you're really wanting me to swallow this pill? I don't know if I can quite believe that. And then later on, it was like, oh no, I shouldn't have. It's okay. The movie knows. The movie knows what it's doing. It's fine. So as far as anything else, it's atmospheric. I think the performances are fairly solid. Like I don't think they necessarily blow you away or anything, but you've got
Yeah.
The main sort of, well, it depends on who you want to call the lead, I suppose, but Caroline Bracken plays both like pairs of the sisters. One of whom's kind of the main character, the blind sister, Danny, and she has very different. I actually didn't even realize they were twins when I first saw her, because like the hair's so different that I didn't even clock.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that until you're saying that, and I do know like later on she does say that they were twins. So, but like even when she says that, like I'm not like clocking them as the same person, because they do look so different.
Yeah. It never even occurred to me it was the same actor until they kind of really emphasized it. And I think she has the more kind of I don't know, less conventional role to play, whereas like the husband character and the other characters are a little bit more on the conventional side. I don't think like they're putting in award-worthy performances, but I think they're solid enough. I think they work in the context of the movie.
I agree. Yeah.
I will say this movie was very subwoofer like heavy. Like it didn't happen often, but whenever it did a jump scare, there'd be like a loud thud from the subwoofer to go along with it, and it kind of I almost want to say it's cheating, because it's literally shaking the room when there's a jump scare to make you move, but it did stick out to me. And I think it's because it was so quiet otherwise that it was the only time it ever came to life was during these big jump scare moments.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, again, maybe it's being like a little too nitpicky, like trying to think of stuff that like I would maybe ding it for, and then there's some stuff like maybe the performances or like the music. Yeah, like I don't think it's bad at all, but I don't know if like it's stuff that like super stuck out or that I'll remember. And it's kind of like you're saying, like it's all like serviceable, but I don't know. I guess it's kind of like in a weird way, like a compliment, where it's like even if there's stuff that doesn't stick out like that, like I still think the movie's great because of there's so much technical skill in what he's doing with the atmosphere, and again just the like setting up all these like little things that just lead to like great scares or revelations or like whatever later that I think there's like a definitely a skill level there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the music is intentionally kind of subdued. Like, it's not really doing a whole lot. It's more of a sort of like a low drone kind of thing for the most part. It's not like something that's got a lot of melody or anything like that. And I think that kind of fits the tone that it's going for. So it's kind of like peeled back by design, I would say. But
sure.
Honestly, I think we have to get spoilers to really talk about anything else. But I will say I do recommend the movie. I think it's a fun one that kind of like I think the whole is pretty good, but there's a few like standout scenes or moments that feel like they're really punching above their weight, and it does kind of make you excited to see what this director can maybe go on to do with his third movie. What can he pull off with not even much more money, just a little bit more money, right? Just a little bit.
Yeah, what's funny is like I was kind of wondering, like, the next thing he does, like, is this the kind of person that, I think this movie did well, or like, people seem to like it, so I'm sure, maybe he'll get like, some more money or something for his next movie, but I don't know if it was like well enough that he'll get like, some huge studio thing. But I was kind of wondering, like, is this the kind of guy that's best served like around this, kind of lower budget kind of movie? Like, would he be able to retain the same spark if he, is all of a sudden doing like $100 million studio movie or something? Maybe it's hard to tell.
Why do you always jump to $100 million studio movie? We're talking about horror movies, Tim. Even the biggest horror blockbusters are $100 million.
Well, I mean, there's got to be some rich eccentrics out there that are willing to just throw money at someone.
I mean, I get what you're saying, a more studio horror movie, but like those aren't that much expensive compared to everything else. Well, I looked up his next movie. He's doing something called Hokum, and it does star Adam Scott, which does suggest that it's a little higher profile than his previous works. So
I could feel I can see like Adam Scott fitting into, you know, the mold of this guy.
Yeah.
You know, so that could be interesting. And that's a good title too.
The other actors here, though, mostly sound like they might still be Irish, though. So I wonder if Adam Scott's in Ireland. But we'll find out when the.
Interesting.
Either that, or he's just cast a few of his like friends that he casts and things in small roles. They're already listed. Because there's no way someone named Michael Patrick isn't Irish. I refuse to believe it.
Well, if you want a good time, you know, you could do worse than a triple feature of Bound, Caveat, and Oddity.
Again, Bound has nothing to do with these other two films. I don't know why we're. I mean, it's a good movie. I recommend Bound actually, but it's definitely nothing like these two.
Just be a fun time to watch all three.
Literally, the only basis for your recommendation is that you accidentally remembered the movie's name.
Yeah, I think for a second I was thinking of Housebound, because that's like another horror movie about someone like being stuck in a house, but I knew it wasn't that one, so I was like, oh, maybe it's just Bound. And I was like, oh wait, no, that's a completely different movie.
Okay. Spoilers, everyone, for Oddity. You have been warned. So we'll get into it. Yeah, the first big set piece, if you want to call it that, is the door, right? It's the you know, so the start of the movie we have what was the other sister's name? The one that dies. I can't remember her name.
Is it a D something?
And no, Danny was the Darcy. Darcy was the other one. That doesn't even sound familiar. Were they saying Darcy in the movie? I don't remember them saying. Maybe I was hearing something else because of the accents. Maybe I was like, it was changing into something else.
Darcy.
Okay, I'm not going to try and offend all our Irish listeners with whatever the hell that was, Tim.
Yeah, all five of them.
The start of the movie, Darcy is sort of at the country home that they've just bought, and she's like fixing it up. She's living in a tent inside the building because there's no like central heating or anything yet. And it also sets up that she's got a camera set up in a tripod to take a photograph like every 30 seconds or something like that. And that's apparently because her sister wants her to check for ghosts or something. So that's like kind of there. Yeah, that's what makes you think instantly, oh, it's a supernatural horror movie. Assuming you didn't know what it was about going in. You're like, this is going to be a ghost movie. But the actual set piece is that the husband, who's a psychiatrist at a mental hospital, works nights. So he's not there at home at night. And she is outside at the car looking for her phone or whatever. And she hears a noise, it's a little bit creepy, and she goes back in, and as soon as she goes back in and locks the door, there's a knock at the door. She opens the little slide or whatever, right? The little not peephole, it's like a full slidey thing. And there's a guy there who's only got one eye, he's got a glass eye, this kind of creepy looking. And he's like, hey, and he's kind of jittery, she's getting kind of scared, and she's obviously worried that this guy's out here in the middle of nowhere. But he says, I saw someone go in your house. Like when you were out of your car, someone else went in the house. And she, of course, is, you know, given this predicament of choosing, do I trust this very crazy sounding man who might be dangerous, or do I take him seriously and believe that there's someone already dangerous inside the house? And then to add it onto that, when he tries to explain who he is, it comes out that he's actually one of her husband's patients. And again, he works at a mental hospital, which does not give him a lot of credibility, as you'd imagine, to a scared woman by herself in the middle of nowhere. So it really sort of like, you know, she's thinking about it, and she's like, I can't let you in. And he's like, hey, I'll come in and look around and whatever. And she's like, no. And it builds up and it builds up. It goes on, you know, a nice little amount of time. And then it ends with her like eventually getting scared and like worrying that someone is inside the house, and she's reaching for the keys to open the door, and that's when it just cuts to the title, Oddity, and it's like, whoa, what happened? And so the critique that I was going to have is that it is a little bit far-fetched to believe that she would ever choose to open that door. Even if she thinks he might be right, like, it's still just too sketchy. It's just not believable at any reasonable person would open the door to this man at the door who seems a little bit off kilter. That said, though, later on in the movie, she didn't, right? We find out she didn't, so it's not even a complaint. But in the moment, it kind of cuts away to imply that she did, and that's what led to her demise.
Yeah, I mean, I love this scene so much. It's just so tense, and it's just instantly like such a great horror premise where it's like, okay, like what do you do? Like, obviously this guy seems, like kind of off kilter, and do you trust him? But then it's like, yeah, he's saying someone else is in the house. So
you've got that little bit of credibility because there was that moment at the car where she thought she heard something, and she couldn't see anything, but it was like, oh, was that the moment someone snuck in the house? Like that's what you're sort of thinking in your head, that he might be right because we were given that little clue. And
it's just really like directed so well. Like I just love how, yeah, you only ever kind of see like, the little bit of the guy's face, and just like,
yeah, it never cuts to like a shot outside where you see him properly. It's always through that little box window in the door.
Yeah. So there's just like so much that's unknown about it. Like, it's like, okay, so like, is he holding an axe, like, like behind his back or something?
Yeah.
Like, and then I think, did they already like establish like early on about the one little corner where like you get cell reception?
Yeah, that's upstairs. Yeah, because in the opening scene, she's phoning her husband. She says, "Oh, I finally found a spot that has cell reception." So they set that up there.
And which, again, that's like just such like a great little setup, because it's like, okay, so there's only one spot in the house where you'd be able to actually like call for help or anything, but it's just this completely dark corner. And then when she's looking at it, it's like, it's nothing. It's just a dark corner, but it's so scary, like with that knowledge of, oh, like, do I go over there into the unknown where there possibly could be someone waiting, even though that's like the only place for help? It's just like throwing them in such like a good horror situation that it's I don't know, I find this like really riveting.
No, I thought it was riveting as well. It reminded me bizarrely a much schlockier movie. But do you remember the start of Urban Legend?
Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen it, but is it do they start with like the guy in the car in the back seat?
Yeah, but specifically the thing it's reminding me of is there's the guy at the station who seems kind of creepy, and she gets scared and runs away from him and drives off. But he's got a stutter.
This sounding familiar.
And he shouts out, "There's someone in the back seat." So he was trying to warn her, and this was reminding me of that. It's like, oh, but instead of just like one little moment where we get to see he was trying to warn her, we spend the whole scene going, wait, is he trying to warn her or is he the danger? Like, that's like the entire conceit of this. So really that. Although there is one dumb thing she does do. She does admit she's lost her phone during the scene. She really could have done without saying that. And she also admitted as well, well, I mean, he kind of knew it because he was a patient, but like she says, oh, my husband will be back any minute, trying to like scare him off. And he's like, oh, Dr. Timms works at night. And she's like, how do you know that? Because that's how she finds out he's a patient, or was a patient. So, like, there is a couple of things she admits to, which if he is the danger, you've given him a lot of good information here to know that he's like, he's got an open season here to just keep tormenting you for hours. But but no, the scene is very good. It's a really simple premise where you're like, do we believe him or do we not? And it kind of like preys upon your idea of how judgmental you are in the moment of someone, because you're kind of saying, he looks creepy, I don't think I can trust him. And it's not saying that you shouldn't do that, because sometimes you have to rely on that, of course. But
absolutely. Well, I mean, I was trying to put myself in those shoes, and it's hard to say what I would have done, because yeah, I mean, most of the time you probably don't want to open the door either.
Oh, for sure. Because that's the thing, when she says, I'll phone the police if you don't leave, he immediately says, yeah, phone the police, like, phone them now, like, get them out here.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah, I've lost my phone. I can't find it. And I'm like, okay, I wouldn't have admitted that, but the fact that he immediately was gung-ho about, yeah, get the police out here, maybe, again, it's a sign that That said, though, what if he's the one that stole the phone and that's why she can't find it? So he's saying that, and it sounds convincing, but in actual fact, it's a trick. Like, so, exactly. So all this is kind of racing through your mind, and you're trying to like decide if like what's the danger here. So when the movie skips ahead, though, like, well, first of all, we get like a weird scene where there's like someone in a bedroom drawing lots of creepy drawings, and they're kind of freaking out. And they hear a noise, and it's very suspenseful. There's a long build up to it. But he eventually goes into this other room, and there's a body lying there with the head just obliterated, like smashed like a pumpkin all over the floor. But we see the glass eye, or the front of the glass eye, like in the blood. So this guy, this person who came to the door to talk to the wife, is now dead. And so we have that, and I'm like, and this is where I was like, wait, what's going on here? Like, why is he dead now? What's happening in this movie? It is a little disorientating at first to try and get your foot in and be like, what's going on? And then we're introduced to the sister, right? Dani, who's kind of our main character, who's this blind woman who has an antique shop, but it's like spooky antiques, where she's a psychic, she does readings, but she also does like curses and lifts curses and that kind of thing.
She has a good line when the doctor comes in, and she's like, oh, if you're planning on shoplifting anything, everything is cursed. Curses will be lifted at the time of purchase.
That's quite funny. I mean, she's blind. She has to have a unique security system to protect her goods. That makes sense. And by doctor, you mean the husband, right? So Tadhg is the doctor / husband. And we did see him briefly because he was on the phone to the wife before the big scene at the start. And you did kind of get the vibe in that scene that like she was being all I love you, but he's kind of turned away from the camera as he says it, which kind of suggests that maybe he's not being truthful to the audience. But so we get introduced to these characters here, and he like says, "Oh, it's me, it's Ted," and she's like, "Oh, it's Ted." So we find out it's been a year since the sister died, and they've not really been catching up. But he's here because Dani, the sister, had requested this glass eye, and he's somehow agreed to do this. But he's managed to get his hands on this glass eye, and he's brought it to her. And when she says, "Oh, we should have dinner sometime," he says, "Yeah, we'll have you out to the house." And she's like, "Who's we?" And he's like, "Oh, my girlfriend Yana." And she's like, "You met someone already?" And he's like, "Well, yeah. We met at work, and she was there for me after the death, and blah 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 blah." And of course, immediately you're like, "Okay, all right, like what?" Somehow the husband's behind this. All right, let's just get this out of the way right now. That's probably the case. So the movie from here, there's a little bit with her where she goes home, she like touches the eyeball or the glass eye, you know what I mean. And she gets like quick flashes. We see like quick flashes of the night with the guy at the door, but we also get quick flashes of someone in a mask. It's like a porcelain mask with like little eye holes cut out, and it's pretty creepy. It's like a proper serial killer mask, and you're like, wait, what the hell was that? What are we seeing here? So the bulk of the movie is actually after this, where Dani just shows up unannounced at the countryside house where Ted and his girlfriend Yana are now living, and like she's like, "Hey, you invited me," and she's kind of stretching the truth here, but it's kind of awkward, and he needs to go to work, and Yana feels a bit uncomfortable with her being there, and she's like, "I don't want her here. What are we doing here?" She's also creeped out because the house is kind of spooky at night, and she hates being here on her own, which understandable. It's hard, like he moved in here still after like his wife was murdered on the grounds. Now admittedly it makes sense given a line it has later, but so that's the awkward setup here, is that she's there and he has to go to work, so it's just her and Yana, the girlfriend, for a good bit of time. And a lot of awkwardness and creepiness comes from this. But it's kind of in this weird way where we kind of know that Dani, while she's kind of the supernatural spooky woman, we know that she's there to try and like do something good because her sister's dead. It kind of like, the movie kind of makes you like, puts you in a really interesting position in terms of who you're rooting for and like how you're feeling about the characters, I think. Because I think typically, even right away, as much as she's a little bit creepy and as much as she might be out for revenge or whatever, I feel like you're more on her side than you are either Ted or Yana, because Ted and Yana come off as fairly unlikable, especially when they see this present she's brought them, and Yana's like, I don't want that thing in my house, it's ugly, and he's like, yeah, we'll get rid of it as soon as she's gone, and so on and so on.
I mean, to be fair, it is pretty unsettling.
Oh, it's absolutely like diabolically creepy. It's basically a full-size man made of wood.
Yeah.
With a mouth that's just open the entire time, like it's screaming for help.
It is like Chekhov's like wooden man, like the whole movie, because it's like frozen solid, but the whole movie you're like, all right, at some point that thing is gonna like get up, right?
Yeah. Talking about the execution again, like the way it's introduced, because obviously we see this trunk and we see them open the trunk, but we don't get a shot of what's inside it. We hear them talk about it, like all these scenes where she's saying she hates it and it's a weird present and all that, and we don't want it here. All of that happens before we see it. We've not seen it yet, so our minds are all just racing with the possibilities of what the hell is in there. And then at one point, Danny says, "Oh yeah, my mother's friend was a witch, and she gave me that." And like she kind of, so it's built up, and even once it is out and it's like sitting at the dinner table, we only ever see it out of focus in the background or out of focus in the foreground as like the shots like behind it for a long time. It's a good few scenes before we actually just get a straight shot of it in focus and like, here it is. This is what it is.
Yeah, it's always like well done. And then I do want to talk about like the characters for a second, because I do think it's really interesting what they do, because like you're saying, Danny's kind of like the main character, but then Ted goes to work, and then he's kind of like out of the picture for a while. And then so like you're saying, it feels like we're focusing on Danny, but then even she kind of feels like she falls off for a bit. Like she kind of just falls asleep, but it's kind of in like a weird creepy way where she's just like sitting up sleeping, and then those shots are like are really unsettling where you just see her sitting like in the foreground, and then the background is like the wooden man. So then like Yana kind of becomes or feels like she's the main character for a bit, and I do think it's interesting what they do, because like you said, she starts off pretty unlikable, and then I don't want to say that like she becomes like a saintly character or anything, but you definitely, I don't know, like I did feel like I felt a bit more for her. I mean, certainly, like she was hooking up with this guy while he was still married, which isn't good, but it's not like it seemed like she had anything to do with the murder or anything.
Yeah, she's innocent as far as like any of that's concerned, for sure.
Yeah. And then like I don't know, I just do think it's like an interesting choice to kind of like follow her, and then like she has like some like actual like level-headedness of like 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 she makes like some pretty good points. I mean
like, her character basically just eventually leaves the movie and never comes back, and she survives because of that.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. Like I feel you don't see that in like horror movies that often, where it's like, all right, we're just done with this character now. But it's like, oh, like she would have left much sooner if she could have. But once she finally got the chance, she's like, no, I'm out. And then
she was going to leave. She was going to leave the blind sister in her house on her own and just leave and go back to the city. And the only reason why she didn't is because she didn't get her car keys, and it's too far away to walk anywhere. So she's like, well, I guess I'm stuck here. So she didn't want it to stay. She's kind of here by default, and it almost felt like because basically like the series of conversations that she has with Danny, where Danny kind of explains, oh, like I can touch an object from someone and like know everything about it, and that's how I make a living. And she tells a story about this woman, this widow who came in with her husband's wedding ring, and she wanted to know if he'd ever been cheating on her, and she's like, yeah, he had repeatedly for years, and I was able to tell her all that from a wedding ring. And that kind of comes back up later on, and it's just like why she knows more about the murder now is because she's touched the eye of Olin is his name, was the guy that came to the door. Another very Irish name, Olin. But I think what's really good about this is that you kind of feel like she is like maybe she is behind the keys being missing for now, right? And there's lots of little passive aggressive things where it almost seems intentional at a certain point where Yana keeps using phrases that are kind of insensitive to someone who's blind, where she's like, have you seen my keys? And I'm like, I don't think she has, Yana. I don't think so. And there's little expressions like that. At one point, she says, I'll see you later, and Yana and Danny goes, yeah, I'll see you later. I'm like, and that one, don't get me wrong, I think that on its own would seem innocent enough because that's just something people say all the time and wouldn't think about it. But it kind of keeps piling up with those like 3 or 4 references to her being blind that are kind of awkward. But what's where I really like it though is when she's telling all this story about the wedding ring and explaining all this. The conversation gets to the death of her sister, right? And they talk about it a little bit. And basically, Danny says, oh, don't you feel weird being out here or something to that effect? About, what if like one of the patients comes back and does something or whatever. And Yana says, do I look stupid at one point? And again, a reference to something that makes no sense to say to a blind person. But the reason why she says this, right? Right, or the reason what comes out from that is she says, do I look stupid? And as soon as she said that, I thought, wait a minute, you're calling her sister stupid then, because you're assuming her sister opened the door, and that would make her stupid. And that's kind of what Danny starts to say. She's like, well, do I look stupid? And she's like, no, I don't think you look stupid. Well, I'm identical to my sister, and you implied that she's stupid because she opened the door. And it kind of, it's a good moment of tension that kind of like, it really feels like we're using everything we know about the incidents and these people to create tension that feels very natural in the scene. And then it feels like this entire section of the movie, Danny is trying to discern if she has any guilt in like what happened here. And I think that's ultimately why Danny eventually says, on you go, get going, because I think by that point in the movie she's touched one of her items or something, and she's realized that that she isn't guilty of like the murder or anything like that. She's just a bystander. And because throughout this part of the movie as well, we get some more like flashbacks to what actually happened that night, where we get like extra chunks of it and see what actually happened. The idea being that Danny has now seen it, probably through Olin's eye, where she's like touched that and she's seen what happened that night. And it happens like a few times, and honestly try to like separate which information we got at which part of the movie is really difficult at this point, because there's like 2 or 3 flashbacks where she's explaining backstory that she's seen through psychic abilities. So the first one definitely is like just a continuation of that first scene, which is her hands are going for the keys, but then Darcy's hand pulls back and says, no, I can't. And immediately I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And it's like, so we're saying, hey, this patient that showed up at her door, Olin, is not the killer, right? And that's what I think at this point, Danny's already said that even. Like, no, Danny did not kill my sister. And it's like, okay, then who did? So she's looking around, she gets scared, and there's a great little bit here where she looks over at the camera that was set up to take photographs like every 20-30 seconds. And she goes over and she starts cycling through the photographs. So this was all really well set up so that you're like, yeah, that's a good idea. This may have caught someone coming in. And sure enough, she gets to one of the photographs and there's this guy in this mask who we only saw briefly in that one flash when Danny had those visions earlier. We got that quick flash of this guy in a mask. And it's like a really cool little creepy moment, and that makes her freak out because now it's real. Now there's someone inside the house. And I'm like on my own. She grabs a hammer. That's what she's got. She's got a hammer, and it's the most she can deal with. So we get a whole sequence where she's like hiding in her tent, and then she opens the tent door, and like the masked guy pops in from the side, and it just kind of snap cuts to the tent being covered in blood, and he's like sitting there just kind of staring at the tent like a creep.
It was a nice little jump scare, like when he first like pops into frame or whatever, and. Yeah, I think that's like a good example of like a jump scare, actually kind of feeling like justified and, not just like, something used to, because I feel like we complain about them a lot, but it's usually, when you're watching like crappy generic Hollywood movies or something where it's just like, there's no point to it or whatever. Like, this is very effective.
There's no fake out here. Like she expects something like, there to be danger, and then danger appears. Like there's nothing cheap about this, so there's nothing to complain about.
And then like you said, like it's a really like cool, creepy, effective mask. And then I kind of like when movies do stuff like this where it's kind of like we're just throwing like a whole bunch of shit in like this big old pot and just like making this giant horror stew because
for the last half hour we've been like, when's the creepy wooden man going to move? And then we're getting like, oh no, there's a slasher movie villain that was hunting her that night, and we're getting all this like, creepy, he's caught on camera moments.
Yeah, like so far in this movie you had like escaped mental patients, like a psychic blind woman, a creepy wooden doll, mass serial killer, and sometimes it's kind of like, okay, is that all gonna fit together? But sometimes obviously you don't want to do it like with every movie, but occasionally I like when you have this kind of hodgepodge of stuff, especially because it's like, okay, well, yeah, if this supernatural thing in this world exists, then this can also exist, and then I mean, we haven't even gotten to everything yet. Like, we're also going to see some ghosts and stuff like coming up soon. But it all works. Like, it's very effective.
The funny thing is, though, is that the supernatural stuff is not the danger or the villain in this movie.
That's true. Yeah.
It's either like neutral or straight up like something good or something that the sister is doing intentionally to try and curse the people who are responsible. It's never the thing that the good people have to be scared of.
And to the point where like, what the girlfriend Yana, she's been kind of freaked out and she thinks she's like seeing Darcy's ghost, and turns out like she is, but she's actually just there to warn her to leave. And basically it's like her finally just like
Darcy's being a saint and actually trying to warn the next girlfriend, hey, he's dangerous, get away from him. Well, and I think that comes after, though, the creepy part with the statue, because it's when Danny goes to sleep and she's sort of sitting upright. At first she's on the couch, and there's a whole sequence here where Yana's up in that balcony part, the part that you can get a reception, and it's like, so it makes sense, like they've established you have to go up to that one little bit of the walkway to make calls. So she's up there on the phone to Ted, and then there's a moment where she looks over the edge of the balcony, and like the wooden statue's head is looking straight up at her, like it's sort of looking back up like that, and it's really creepy, and she freaks out, but then she looks back over the edge and it's back to normal. But then later, when by the time Danny's like moved to sitting at the dining table, and like the wooden statue's always been at the other end of the dining table, there's a whole bit where Yana goes up and like notices these holes in the back of its head, and it almost looks like if you're looking at a bowling ball, there's like 4-5 holes, and she's like looking in them and she can tell there's stuff in there, so she gets some tweezers and she like slowly pulls stuff out, and it's a couple of photographs of like Danny and her sister. There's also a vial of blood that really freaks her out. There's also a tooth in one of them, and you get the impression this is all like the curse stuff. Like whatever's in here is all a part of this curse that Danny's trying to do. And it's when she
it's all weird. Like they never actually explain like.
Oh no, they never explain it. No, but it's when she pulls out the vial of blood where all of a sudden you just hear "put them back" and like Danny's standing up, and I'm like, oh, and I get why we don't question it, because at this point we're fully on board. But no, she has got supernatural abilities. She's psychic. She can sense this has been disturbed. But I did think it was interesting that Yana doesn't say, "Wait, how do you know? You can't see me."
Yeah.
like, are you faking? Like, throw an orange at her, see if she flinches.
And actually, I did think that like Danny was pretty scary in this moment, like because the whole movie, even if she is saying something that maybe like would seem kind of threatening or like throw you off guard, it's always been in this very mild mannered, like just like level way that she talks and stuff, like
little passive aggressive as well at times, especially as it builds.
So just like her out of nowhere just like screaming like at the top of her lungs, it was like, oh, like I would be freaked out if I was in Yana's shoes.
It also is interesting to think that the ghost of her sister is more sympathetic, whereas Danny is out for revenge for her sister's death, is like, she's like, hell hath no fury, but the dead sister's kind of like, no, she's innocent, I'm going to warn her as a ghost to try and get out. And all of this made sense as I was watching it. Nothing caught me off guard, bizarrely. I was into it, but the actual moments of the ghost showing up are fun. Like, you know, they're spooky enough, and dark corners and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, like I think, and again, I was kind of mentioning this earlier, like I don't know, like the ghosts, like they look like maybe just like kind of like typical ghosts, and then yeah, it is very like okay, nothing's there, and then all of a sudden they pop up, and I could see it in a worse director's hands, like feeling very cheap. But yeah, like I don't mind it here, but it is funny though, like the moments with the ghosts and stuff like are like I feel like I don't mind them, but I do think they are less effective than
Oh,
a
for
lot of the
sure.
other stuff we get in the movie.
Yeah, it's not all equal. This is definitely on the weaker end of like what the movie does, but it kind of fits into the overall narrative like a puzzle piece. So you're just kind of you're okay with it because it adds to the overall story, even if the moment itself's not as good as the other stuff with all the, you know, all the tension of like taking things out the wooden man, or is the wooden man going to move, or all the flashbacks to the serial killer stuff, or or whatever. So the other flashbacks that happen, and part of it I think maybe when Ted finally comes back to talk to her, but just to sort of set the rest of this up, is that at one point Danny reveals that she's the one who killed Olin, that she believed the story that he'd murdered her sister, and she like smashed his head into smithereens. How she did that, you know, she never goes into, and we can just assume that something supernatural was involved. But she did that, and she even says, as she admits this, that she is going to pay for that because she knows he's innocent now. Not only was he innocent, he was trying to warn her sister. He was trying to save her, and so she feels really guilty about that, and she's expecting there to be consequences for that. But I thought that was a really interesting like change. Like I think the idea that not only is he innocent, but the idea that this like that our main character is responsible for his death, but now regrets it because it was a wrongful, I don't know, execution, I guess we'll call it. I think makes it more interesting than any other way they could have went with it.
My assumption was that she had gotten the wooden man to like she's controlling him, and how he somehow made his way into the mental hospital or whatever.
Well, it wasn't in the hospital. He was at a halfway house at that point because it was like a roommate who found him.
Okay, was he? I guess I was assuming after like he was convicted of the because I assume he got convicted of the murders, right?
I don't know if he did. They don't go into it. They don't really talk about if he got officially got like.
I guess I don't.
Yeah, no, they specifically say he was going out to a halfway house and his roommate found him. So you know when he was getting discharged. So
well, I remember him in the flashback when he's talking to Ivan for the first time, mentioning he was supposed to get out and go to a halfway house. But I guess for some reason I assumed that after the murder he got caught and then was sent back to the mental hospital. But I guess there isn't much basis for that or whatever. But yeah, my thinking was that the wooden man did that she was like controlling him, but I guess we don't really know for sure.
I mean, it's the most likely possibility, but I don't think it really matters how exactly she did it. It could have, I mean, maybe she's another cursed object or something. I mean, who knows? It's not really the important part of it. The important part is just that she already went after who she thought was responsible, and the touching of his eye when she got it, like, kind of like revealed all these other things to her. Because Olin did witness enough, right? Because the reason why Olin was trying to warn the wife is because Olin overheard the plans to kill her. Because this is where it kind of gets into the, you know, Ted, the husband, asked Ivan, the orderly, who we've not really mentioned yet. We've kind of like ignored talking about him up until now because we've just been kind of like focusing on the one set of characters. And Ivan was introduced like way earlier on in the film. We see him be kind of like mean to like one of the patients, and it just kind of sets him up. We see him talk to Ted a couple times. But the flashbacks with Olin when Danny's talking about is where we get to see a lot more meaty parts of it, where he comes in and like kind of mocks Olin and sort of jokes about the fact that he's only got one eye, and jokes about the fact, oh, you're getting to leave, or you're just passing through. Like he seems like he's very vindictive and enjoys mistreating the patients. But
yeah, because I think you find out that Olin was in there because he like murdered his like mother or adoptive mother or something, but yeah, it was like because she was abusive.
Yeah, she was more than abusive. She was literally trying to take his other, like she blinded the one eye, and she was coming for the second eye, and that's when he defended himself and ended up beating her to death. So it wasn't just like, oh, he was a crazy man who killed his mom. It was a bit more like there's a lot more cause and effect going on.
That's right, because what Danny's talking about is she has that line where she's like, oh, like if I had one eye left, I would do anything I could to defend it or something like that.
Yeah, she kind of sticks up for him. But like, so we see Ivan's attitude towards the patients, and we kind of get that. We also get this whole idea that he like comes in at one point and says to Ted, "Oh, you didn't tell me your wife had a twin sister. I walked into this little antique shop, and there she was, and I saw her." But the conversation obviously that really sticks out is when it finally shows the reveal, because Danny straight up says Ivan, who works at the hospital, the orderly, he did it. He's the one that actually killed my sister. And we get the flashback of when Ted asked Ivan to do this, right? And Ivan's just sort of like, oh, really? Okay. And he starts like asking like questions of like, oh, you wanted to be quick, and you want why not just divorce her? Why not just do that? And he's like, oh, we just sank all of our money into this house, and if I like admit I was cheating in divorce, I won't, she'll take it, like she'll get all the assets. It's like, but I don't want her to get too hard. I want it to be quick. And you can tell Ivan already came across as a bit of a psycho, to be honest, because he was telling this story about breaking down this cross like every year for some reason. But the way he keeps saying, what if the motive is sexual? And he tries to like take it in that direction a couple times, and Ted's like adamant, no, I don't want anything like that to happen to her. And I'm like, Ted, you're sending someone who's unhinged to go and murder your wife for you, and you're just going to assume, after he's already shown an interest in sexually assaulting her before death, that he will just accept your word for it and not do it? That seems like a bold claim. And I was actually surprised the movie never made it clear later that did happen, because it felt like, why wouldn't he? But either way, we do find out much later in the film that Ivan actually used to be a patient, and then Ted like discharged him and then hired him as an orderly. So, because Ted's very concerned at the end of the movie that if this all gets out, that you went and killed my wife, and that you used to be my patient, and I discharged you, then hired you, that would make people think I'm bad at my job. So I can't let that happen. And I'm like, you know what, Ted? You are bad at your job. I think I'm at that point where I'm ready to say that. But so yeah, we get the setup for like how the murder was set up, and the fact that Ivan was effectively hired to go do it.
In a way, it's almost like it's not played for like laughs at all, but like there is kind of like a dark comedy to it, where I feel like geez, man, like obviously he gives his reasoning, but it is still like kind of nuts, where it's like, yeah, there's a lot of other options before like murdering your wife. Like, yes, divorce will be very messy, but like, dude, much better option than hiring someone to murder your wife, especially like you're saying, like this guy that's so clearly unhinged.
When the unhinged man, the one that you know is willing to go and murder someone for you, is saying, why not just get a divorce? Like, when he's trying to talk you out of it, maybe take a step back and reconsider what you're doing. But one of the things he also says, like one of his reasons is, oh, she's in love with me too much. Like,
she loves me too much.
It'll break her heart. She'll be distraught for the rest of her days. And I'm like, you think a lot of yourself, sunshine.
Oh, the ego on this man is out of control. Like, I mean, honestly, that's probably more in play than like, I don't know, losing the house and stuff. Like, he probably thinks it like, oh, truly, I'm such a great man that without me, she'll be nothing. And it's also kind of funny that it's like, yeah, something like this, you're just like speaking about openly at work to the point where it's like patients are overhearing it in the vents. Like,
yeah, that's the other part we hadn't mentioned yet, is Olin's like at the vent listening to all this, so he knows about this plan, which is why he comes to Warner.
Which, like, it sounds very silly when you're talking about it, but it does actually work in the movie. Like, I'm kind of like, taking the piss out of it, but like, I actually do think when you're watching it that it is effective and makes sense. It's just kind of funny to talk about it afterwards. And then I also do kind of find their relationship funny, because it's like between the doctor and Ivan. Because like later on, he's kind of like seems like he wants to like hang out. Ivan, he's kind of like, oh, maybe we could like go up to this place over the weekend or something. And you can tell the doctor's just like, dude, I don't want to chill with you. I'm sorry. I know he did me a solid and killed my wife, but like, come on, man.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go on a little. It wasn't a fishing trip. It was basically, I'm going to go destroy that cross at my old school again. Why don't you come with me? We'll make a day of it. We'll make a day of it. And he's like, no, the weekends are when I spend time with Yana. I think the other impression I got with Ted, like, is that he doesn't really need to be at work as all that time that he does, like at night. Like, it felt like he was almost avoiding being home. Maybe I'm wrong, but we literally just cut to him playing chess with Ivan at one point, and I'm like, this is what you do, like when you're at work.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I would imagine, like, I don't know, how, like, the facilities and stuff are run, but I'm imagining, since it's like a mental hospital, that he's more of like a psychiatrist kind of doctor versus like
he is, yeah,
medical. But you would think like the stuff that he would be doing, like having like exams and like counseling and stuff like that would usually be stuff during the day. Yeah,
they almost make it seem like he's just there to be the boss at night, like it's his turn to be the one in charge. And I'm like, I feel like I get that maybe you have to be on call in case there's an incident at the hospital, but I'm not sure why you would have to be there just to supervise the orderlies who are like, acting as like guards for the night.
I think I mean, again, it's probably like an ego thing where he probably thinks he's much more needed than he really is. And like, even like you were saying before, like later on when he's like, oh, what would people think of me if they found out that you are my patient and stuff? And it's like, I don't know, dude, like it's not like doctors that work at like mental hospitals are usually famous people. Like it's not like it's going to be a huge story on the tabloids or something. Like, I guess with like true crime and stuff. But
to be fair, I don't think that was the point he was trying to make. I think he was making more the point that no hospital would ever hire him again because his reputation in the field would be completely destroyed. And to be fair, I think it would be like reputation destroying.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's in question, but he's just trying to save his own skin is basically what it comes down to at a certain point. So he is a very slimy character, and it's kind of... It is interesting that the movie ends in kind of a dark comedy beat, almost. Which
that's true, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't got to that yet, because basically, once Jan is called and she's ran away in the car and she phones him and says, I'm leaving, I'm going away, this is awful, like, blah, 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 blah. He goes to the house and finds Danny upstairs. And this is where Danny like reveals some of the flashbacks and like tells him, "Hey, you asked Ivan to kill my sister." Sorry, my brain went there middle of that sentence. And he's like, "Well, why do you think this? Oh, is this your brain again, Danny? You had like a tumor at one point. Like maybe you need to go to the hospital and be committed, and I can look after you." Like, he's like trying to like play the crazy card and gaslight her. But there's a really cool thing here, is he's basically saying, "Hey, I'll get in touch with a police investigator who investigated your sister's death. We'll have her come and talk to you, and we'll go talk to Ivan as well, and we'll get this all sorted out. Would that make you feel it?" And he puts down his phone and he says, "Hey, I've put my phone in this chair. When it rings, answer it. I'll have the policeman on the phone, the detective, to talk to you." And he leaves. It's not until after this scene's over where it cuts back and shows you that as he was doing this, and you didn't see it in the angle because we only saw from like the chest up, that he was opening like a trap door right in front of her. The idea being that he wants her to walk forward to the phone when it rings, and she'll fall through this hole, hopefully to her death. You would presume is what he's hoping for.
Yeah, again, like just so much credit to this director for the way he sets things up and then reveals them later. It's always so satisfying. Because like when you watch the scene, it is like a little weird, like how much he emphasizes. Like if you break it down, it's kind of bizarre. It's like, hey, I'm putting my cell phone down here, which I mean, it makes sense because we established that that's where the reception is. But again, it's just kind of weird to be like, hey, I'm setting my cell phone down right here. Make sure to answer it. And then like even before he leaves, he kind of like hits it again. He's like, just make sure to answer the phone, okay? And the first time you're watching it, it's kind of like, all right, he seems really intent on wanting her to answer the phone. Okay. But then, like you said, just that next little thing where they're just replaying the scene again from like, that upper angle, and it's like you see him removing that or whatever. It's just it's so well done.
Yeah, because it's actually kind of a little bit weird when he's talking to her and he's sort of crouched down and like mostly out of frame. It does feel like a little bit of a weird framing, but it pays off because you're like, oh, it's because he was doing something. And it doesn't feel like a cheat either, because the whole idea is that she can't see it. So it's emulating that for the audience, so we also can't see that he set this trap. But then it does show us at one point so that we can feel the tension of like, is she going to fall through it? And when he calls her from the hospital, he goes back to the hospital, she does fall through it. She takes a couple of steps forward and she just goes down. And then he sends Ivan. He explains to Ivan what's happened. The sister's like doing all this stuff. And Ivan's sent to the house, which is what Danny wanted. Danny wanted Ivan to come to the house so Danny could kill him. That's what she said. But obviously now she's fallen through this hole. She's badly hurt. And Ivan comes in and sneaks around and he finds her. And when he phones Ted says, okay, did you find my phone? And he's like, it had a pretty bad fall. And he's like, will it work again? He's like, nope, it's beyond repair. It's all just like, obviously they just want to say over the phone in case anyone ever can hear it, that they're talking about a person. So it's like, nope, she's pretty much as good as, and she is. She's like coughing up blood. She's barely moving. She's just there. But she's able to get like enough strength to like lift her arm up to sort of like finish like a curse or something, whatever you want to call it. Like she does something with her arm. And we get like the payoff to what we've been waiting for like most of the movie, which is the wooden man is going to like come to life. And we get a lot of Ivan sneaking around and checking to see if there's anyone else around. Because at one point he like sees a camera flash over the side of like the bed where Yana had left the camera from earlier. And like he sort of sees this flash and he goes over and starts to look at that. And then, of course, you get the wooden man moving in the shadows, and it kind of like, it's always walking very slowly, but he's kind of freaking out and he's trying to get away from it. He doesn't know what to do. Eventually, he has to like get away from it by jumping over the balcony, and he breaks his leg. And the wooden man just walks towards him as he's lying there, begging for help, pretty much. And it kind of seems like he's probably going to be killed, or is killed. It's not until after, though, you cut to him in the hospital bed with handcuffs around him. Presumably he's been blamed for the death of Danny because he was found there with her dead body. But yeah, Danny's dead now. He's in hospital and the doctor's like, hey, this is all on you. You don't get to talk to a priest and confess your sins, because he wants to. Because at this point, because he's seen the wooden man, Ivan is like, oh, I need to like talk to Danny. I need to talk to a priest. I need to confess my sins because like heaven and hell is real. I've seen supernatural shit. Like I am now scared of the afterlife. I have to do this. Because there was a line earlier on when he was explaining like the harsh nun that used to be at that school that he hated. That the blind nun that used to like be one of the teachers said that she went blind because God showed her what hell looked like, and that's why she went blind. And I think that's kind of coming back in here where he's like, like all those things he discounted as a child, he's now terrified of because he's seen this wooden man walking towards him. And also maybe a bit of ghostly activity as well. Yeah. So what did you think of all this wooden man set piece?
No, I mean, I thought it was great. Like you said, we've been waiting the whole movie for it to kind of come to life. And again, I think it's utilized very effectively where it's not like something that's just like coming right at the camera, like blah. Like you always kind of see it like a little bit off in the distance or in the shadows, which I feel like just makes it like a lot creepier. And then I like a lot of choices where it's like, it's not what you expect. Like when someone dies, it's like usually not like the way you expect it. Like, cause yeah, you're like, oh, okay, so the wooden man's just gonna, get him, right? But it's like it's like an even worse fate for him where he's spared, but now he knows like the horrors of supernatural and what's going to be waiting for him, and then it's like it's a worse outcome for him to, because if he just dies in that instance by the wooden man or whatever, but to know now that like heaven and hell exists, and then to be denied like the salvation he could get from like confessing to a priest is like a pretty like messed up like ending for him.
That was something that Danny said to Ted at one point, right? Is that, I don't want to kill you anymore. I think it would be more punishing for you to take everything you've got, to ruin your reputation, to take your livelihood away and all the rest of it. And that kind of happens. Like Yana, like we hear Yana on the phone at the end saying, I'm not coming back. If you think I'm going back to that house or ever coming back to you, you're absolutely off your rocker. Never call me again. So like Ted's depressed at the end, like on his own.
And she even says like, and why the hell are you still in that house after like 2 people have died in there? Like, are you crazy? And then again, I said before, like I like how there's just like lots of different like weird horror things going on, and like it is a weird end for him to be like, all right, and now I'm just gonna like set this, I guess, cannibal inmate or something on you, like.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention that. Yeah, his way of shutting up Ivan is that there's this other inmate who has like a muzzle on the whole movie that we see a few times that he just kind of like lets into the room, and like he starts like eating Ivan's feet, and it just cuts to like the rest of the movie, and it's like, okay, all right.
Like he says something like, oh yeah, and I suppose no one would question it if like a violent inmate got loose and attacked another inmate or something, and then you just see the guy, and again, it's like very well done, where you just kind of see him like eyeing his toes, and you're like, oh, like, yeah, definitely, like, give me the wooden man any day of the week.
Yeah, so the ending kind of wraps back around to the first scene where we saw Ted with Danny in the antique shop.
Oh, and sorry, and just before we go into that, just to kind of wrap everything up else before that, and then Ted even mentions before that, like, oh yeah, he saw the wooden man and it was nothing, he just burned him. He was like, it's just a wooden man, it's not, it didn't come after me or anything, which is like a nice little setup for him, like not really having any reason to believe in the supernatural or anything, which
he never did, to be fair. Like he was always adamant it was all bullshit the entire time anyway. He didn't believe in any of it. He didn't believe in anything that Danny ever did at the shop. He didn't believe in psychic stuff or ghosts. Like he was very against all that the entire time. And that's just like him confirming it to himself, as burning the wooden man and saying, it didn't scream. It didn't like, move around or like act like it was in pain when I burned it, because it's just wood. It's gone. It's dead.
Which just makes this next scene that you're about to go into just like a nice little capper for the movie.
Yeah, well, it pays like, again, it's like a dark comedy beat more than anything, because it wraps back around to the first time he spoke to Danny in the occult shop, or whatever you want to call it, and she told this story about this like bell that she's got, like a bell you get in a hotel, like one of those little bells.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, yeah, she tells a story about how like this bellboy got pushed downstairs and died, but this bell got cursed so that whenever you ring it, it'll like summon him, like this dead bellboy will show up. So they tell this story, and he kind of laughs it off because he doesn't really believe it because he's a skeptic at the start of the movie. Here at the end, there's a package at the house when he gets back there, and it's addressed from her occult shop, and he's like, this is strange. And he opens it up on the table, and he takes out the little bell, and obviously you remember the story of this from the start of the movie, and he looks at it, and he sits down, and it really takes him a minute. He's thinking about it, and he just sort of goes ding, and he hits it, and he kind of looks around, and he hears a creak at one point, and it kind of like makes him go, oh, but I'm being silly, and he dings it again, and he just kind of smirks to himself like, no, I'm untouchable. And then the final shot of the movie, yeah, the ego, and then the final shot of the movie is just this, like the camera pulls back to this 2-shot where there's just like a dead bellboy standing next to him in the scene, and he doesn't even see it. We don't even get like a reaction shot where he turns and looks at it. it just ends with us knowing that this dead bellboy is next to him and will presumably get him.
Yeah.
So it's a funny ending. It's definitely a funnier beat than the rest of the movie is.
And even like when it's happening, like this song like starts playing, which like it's not like a like crazy pop song, like it feels like a bit more old timey, but it it is a juxtaposition to have like
It's
this
upbeat.
kind of
Yeah.
to have that with like this dead bellboy in the back. But I do love like a good like spooky cursed object ghost story like that. So I like when they brought it up in the beginning of the movie, and then just to bring everything full around and then to have it at the end is just such a nice little touch. And honestly, it is kind of like a dark movie. So if it did just end with like him getting away scot free, like it would be kind of like unsatisfying. But yeah, just knowing that like he's lost like all these people in his life, and now he's like alone in this house that was so important to him, and like you said, like looking depressed and presumably feeling like shit or whatever, and then yeah, just have this like cockiness of being like supernatural, I'm above all that, like these things can't touch me, and then doing it, and then just knowing that this ghost is going to get him in some way or another. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, honestly, I was thinking towards the end, particularly when the wooden man was chasing Ivan, but this ending also, in a lot of ways, it's very much like a classic Tales from the Crypt story, in the sense that it's about bad people getting their comeuppance by the end.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's what it is. It's about these people that did something really bad, and we find out about it, and they get their comeuppance from something supernatural. It's just more that there's a central person who's kind of aiming all the supernatural stuff at them with curses, but that's kind of the hero in this movie. But like I said, there's a little bit of nuance because she got the wrong person first and feels guilty about it. I honestly, that's like one of my favorite details of the whole movie, because it kind of like just makes it makes it feel like, you know what, I messed up. There's a bit more layers here to what's going on, and like, maybe in some level she accepted that she was going to die because like I did that to someone who didn't deserve it. So it's a fun movie. I think not all of it's equal. Some like ideas and parts are like really good. Some ideas and parts are all right. Some ideas and parts are just okay. But like there's enough great stuff, and like the way it all kind of fits together is a lot of fun. Even when there was a little trope here, or like the guy hearing everything to the event, which is a very kind of movie trope style way of like getting information or whatever. Like whenever you get something like that, it just kind of makes everything fit together so well that you kind of let it go a little bit, because ultimately it's the execution of the how the horror is built up, how the pieces are built up and paid off, and just something as simple as like ending that opening big set piece at the door almost opening, and then letting us think that that's how it basically ended, and then showing us the rest of it, and there being more suspense to enjoy later on, just added so much more to it. And it kept me on my toes because it kept doing different things, whether it was going back and doing more with that opening, whether it was doing something with more supernatural stuff or more wooden man stuff, which is also supernatural but very specific and different. So, or then it was ghost stuff. Like it kept going around. All right, Tim, what are you thinking the scene of the movie is?
There's a lot of good stuff in this movie. Like I don't think I was ever bored at any point. Like you said, there's definitely like parts that I would say are better than others, but there's never really like any lulls or anything for me. I mean, it feels like maybe a little too easy to say, but I mean, the opening scene I just think is so good. There's so much tension. Like it's a very simple premise, but again, sometimes it's like those really simple things that are very impressive, where it's like, oh yeah, like I don't know if I've seen something done exactly like this, but it's so effective, and like it does such a good job of putting you like in the shoes of this person, and like not knowing what to do, not knowing like what the right choice is. I just thought that was great.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another scene that I'd rather pick, and I don't know if I have one, honestly. I think it might be the same scene. I think there's an argument for the continuation of it when we get that later. There's also maybe an argument for some of the wooden man stuff, but honestly, yeah, the opening with the man at the door and not knowing if she can trust him or she should be listening to him and being scared of someone else inside the house. It's just, like you say, really simple and effective.
And I know you kind of mentioned it briefly, but I do just want to go back to when we do get that like flashback scene and we meet Ivan in the mask and stuff. I really did like how they portrayed, like, you know, the death where you just see him slowly approaching the tent and then it just instantly cuts to him back outside of the tent, but like all the carnage is already done. Like you just see like all the blood and stuff splattered, and like actually, like, you know, thought that was like pretty shocking. Like, oh, like, you're not going to show us anything, but I feel like it's, you know, almost more disturbing, like that we're just cutting to all this aftermath. Like I thought that was a cool little touch.
Yeah, it's kind of impressive that we already knew she was going to die, because this is, you know, at this point it's a flashback and we know she's dead, but somehow you gave me a fairly kind of down to earth character that it feels quite like bad that you killed her so brutally. Like I almost felt a little bit like, you know, I didn't enjoy it in the way that I normally would in a slasher movie where someone who's a bit of a goofier character gets chopped up. You know, it felt a bit more hard hitting in that sense. So all right, what is your MVP of the movie?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because there's so much to like about the movie. Then, you know, we kind of mentioned before like the performances where they're not bad, but, you know, it's kind of not like over the top. But I mean, it would be kind of funny to give it to the Wooden Man, because even though, you know, it's not like he's there through a ton of the movie, it is very effective. But I do think I would have to give it up for Danny. I did think she was pretty engaging, you know, whenever she was on screen, and even before, like when she's not like, you know, outright like, you know, like we know what her plan or kind of deal is. There was just kind of like a creepiness, like when she would just casually talk about supernatural stuff or like cursed stuff. So I always like enjoyed when she was on screen, and then yeah, there was some versatility there where, like, okay, there are parts where she was like creepy when she kind of just like falls asleep sitting upright, or when she gets mad and starts yelling. It's like, you know, there's some range to that character.
Yeah, it's probably her as well, I think. You know, I think I kind of like almost bordering on cheesy villainous Ivan is at times. Like I was kind of enjoying like the sort of the reveals of, or the teases of him being the real bad guy. And he's not really the real bad guy. I mean, obviously he is a bad guy, but Ted's the real villain of the movie. So yeah, I'll say Danny as well, because yeah, like she has the mystique about her as well, because she has all this, like, you know, she shows up with a plan, and it's kind of an interesting thing where you're rooting for the witch effectively in the movie. But normally that's not the case. Normally you're rooting for other people who are normal and want to survive. So it's a little bit different and a bit more unique than most horror movies tend to be. So as much as we all love getting wood, I'm not picking the Wooden Man. All right, Tim, what is your final score for Oddity?
Yeah, so again, this is my second time watching it, and both times I've enjoyed it immensely. I think it's again, there's no like really lulls in it. There's you know, lots of atmosphere, scenes of like genuine tension and creepiness, and again, I like that it's just kind of throwing a lot of stuff out there. We're getting, you know, mass serial killers and cursed objects and ghosts and yeah, all this different stuff, but it all like works together really well, and it has like a story that you know, keeps you on your toes, and even on like a second watch when I knew it was going, like I still found myself being really engaged in it. So I have like very, you little negative to say about it. Like again, like some minor critiques is just like, all right, maybe like a few things here or there could have been better, but again, that's all very minor. This is something that I liked quite a bit and found very satisfying. So I think I'm gonna give it an 8. Yeah, I think just very solid. I'd highly recommend, if someone hasn't checked it out, to go and give it a watch. It's on Shudder right now. And then if you haven't seen it, his previous film, Caveat, aka Bound, definitely go ahead and check that out. But I mean, that was another one that I would say I like this one more than Caveat. I think it's more solid all around. But Caveat was also like a really interesting, movie with like a really unique premise that did a lot with it. And I'm trying to think, like I want to kind of come up with a word or phrase for like when someone is just really good at like setting up stuff. I mean, I guess that should be the goal kind of most directors.
I mean,
you want to like.
I mean, it's not even a directing thing specifically; it's a writing thing specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, yeah, you can capture if it's a visual thing, you're capturing it, I suppose, as a direction thing, but it should be in the script. So, which I don't. And he does. He did write this as well. To be fair, so it's still him. You're still praising him, but yeah.
But there's just so many instances that made me smile where it's like, oh, that thing that like I wasn't thinking about at first is you're bringing it back up, or you're just being very effective in setting up like this little thing here, like so to the point where it's like, okay, well now we can make just this one little dark corner just very creepy, just by the fact of how we set it up and stuff. So just lots of little things to like about that. But yeah, I was really happy with this one.
Yeah, for people who could see like it looking brighter behind me right now, that's because the sun has come up. I want to point out that we started this at almost 6 a.m. UK time, and it's now like 7:20. So Tim is keeping me up all sorts of weird hours, and I'm just pointing that out. We're almost to the point where I'm like, I should probably just go to sleep and get up early to record with Tim. But anyway, no, it's very good. I've been kind of wrestling between a 7.5 and an 8 in my head since I watched it. I think Caveat I gave like a 7, maybe a 7.5. Like I said, it was good. I liked a lot of it. It wasn't flawless by any means. It had some rough edges, but it was really interesting and unique. And I think this is kind of similar, maybe goes a little bit up in the quality just a tad, maybe the experience there helping it out. The only thing that like is maybe like, I'm just like, do I want to call it great? Do I think it hits great? Because that's really what I think an 8 represents. And the reason why I'm, I don't think it's in consideration for anything above that, just purely because, if he can like nail like an even better story down the line, like we could be really in for something special. I think right now it's fun. It's fairly tight and it's fairly focused, but it just isn't quite at that stage yet. But I think I'm going to go 7.5. I think I want to be more reserved. I think in time it might sneak up on like a second viewing or something, but I think right now I don't want to just go too like I'm wary of like recency bias or like the honeymoon phase. But it is very good, and I definitely would begin watching it again. I'll definitely be looking to grab it for keeps at some point. But no, pretty good. So I'm glad we squeezed this one in before we got to best of the year list, which is comically going to be in May at this point. But hey, we do have a couple other things to get to though before we get there. So I'm a little unsure of the order of the episodes right now, depending on what we squeeze in. So I won't say what's coming next time, but I will say that before we get to the top 10, we will be doing both Strangers Chapter 1 and Hellboy the Crooked Man, which was kind of a that was like a goal that was unlocked in a stream. It's not really that high priority, but we need to do it. So that's coming up before the top 10. So look forward to all that stuff. But of course, I'll make this quick because I really should go and get some rest. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and get bonus content. The stream's bonus content's a little inconsistent right now while Tim's living at his in-laws, but there's a whole back catalogue, and there's more coming when we can, and then when Tim's in his new house again, we'll be back to consistent output on that front. But there's also bonus content for the other shows that we have on MailFuzz Movies, so please do go and help us and support us on Patreon or via YouTube membership if that's more your thing. A lot of the content is also available that way too. So thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.